I bid you all good morning, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be watching this transmission. It is I, Mike Martins. I threw up a video yesterday called Canadian Housing Crash. It's here. I got a lot of messages from everywhere, from all over the Commonwealth, asking me to do one on New Zealand, asking me to do one on Australia. Believe it or not, tons of messages on Instagram. So yeah, here it is for you guys. I'm going to do the Australian one. And I actually spent a lot of last night and a good portion of this morning going over stats and different numbers. It's really tough in Australia to get accurate, concrete numbers on anything. It's almost like they're keeping the country a secret. A secret of what? So housing. If you've been in housing, now there's a couple of videos I kind of want to show for you guys here. I have to show these videos because a lot of people are thanking me, and I'm getting a lot of thank you cards. Like, people are sending thank you cards to my store. People have been sending me fan mail, like literally handwritten fan mail, and I really appreciate that very much. And let me switch my screen here to article reading. So there's the video I did yesterday for you guys for what's happening in Canada. Now, I've been covering the entire Commonwealth for many years because the same patterns where countries are selling out to wealthy investors, right? So here it is. These are videos I made here discussing Australia. There's about 270 videos. I've lost 400 videos removed by YouTube that went against I don't know, I lost a lot of Australian housing videos were taken down. And that's why my video went through a lot of trouble in the last 3-4 years. So here it is. Australia's 133 billion property price slide. That's from a year ago. Now, this is the one I'm getting a lot of people emailing me and sending me fan mail is Australia housing, do not buy anything from 1 year ago. I got a lot of stabs from people saying, oh, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. You've never even been to Australia. No, just give me a country's numbers and I could tell you if they're defaulting or I could tell you their future in the next year. I actually coined that. I actually said that quite a few times. Give me a country's numbers, and I'll tell you where it's going to be in the next year. Australia housing, do not buy anything. I got so much slack and so much trash on me for this video with people saying, if you don't buy now, you'll never own. Australia's housing is severely unaffordable. I did the 10K cash ban. Huge Australian household debt threatens economy. So we got videos going back years. 2 years ago, Australian housing in hot water. We got Australia calls for urgent stimulus, and that's 6 months ago. So this was, everyone's blaming everything on COVID, but that's not the case. Here's another one from 3 years ago. Housing crisis, Australia, wake up. That's actually 4.5, 5 years ago, because this was recorded. YouTuber. Where I lived 4 years ago. So it's showing here 3 years ago, 2016. Yeah, so it's actually longer. I've been living in this house longer. So, oh, I know what happened. The video got put back up. It got taken down and I think it got re-put back up by. So much. Is China to blame for Australian housing crisis? China versus Australia, economic retaliation. This is stuff going back years, right? Oh, get out of Sydney. So, and I've been talking about this for years and years to come because I knew affordability levels was going to be out of whack. But one thing I found out about Australia was it's almost like, for me, it's almost like Australia is like the petri dish slash science project for the rest of the Commonwealth. And I've been watching and seeing and kind of evaluating from afar. And it's true. It's becoming very Orwellian down under. So thank you to all my Australian friends. Share this video to show people that did share my video in the past to say, hey, remember this video? Don't buy anything a year ago? Would everyone that trashed me in the comments and sent me threatening messages and threatened to sue me? Real estate agents from down under threatening to sue me? And I told them, bring it on. Predictions. House prices could fall by 30% in worst case scenarios as COVID restrictions bites. So guys, again, we've been discussing this. Average wage earners cannot afford an average wage home in Australia unless they put rates into negative territory, and we discussed this on the channel. The average wage earner is so far out of reach out of housing in some parts of Australia that they need to save up at least 15 to 25 years to be able to afford to put a down payment. They're like, well, Mike, you could buy a whole house out. No, not with inflation and the wages not keeping up to inflation and the way house prices are taking off. you would have to save 25 years just to put a down payment. So one property analyst warns, oh yeah, I got numbers, guys. I spent all last night and all this morning. I'm going to be reading numbers on retractions, okay? On retractions from Sydney all the way down to Hobart, so, and all the way up to Darwin. So keep your ears, stay with the video, and I'll tell you guys what's happening there, okay? One property analysis warns worst case scenario where COVID restrictions are extended for at least 6 months could see housing prices tumble 30 points. So this is, in my opinion, a very good case scenario depending what part of Australia you're in. So this we know. So let's move on. The simple reason why so many people are leaving Sydney, so we had a mass exodus of people leaving the major cities of Australia because they were out of reach. And we're not talking about minimum wage earners. We're talking about average wage earners that were completely out of reach. Sydney has long been considered one of the most beautiful cities on the planet. And it's saying, in short, house prices in Sydney's median house price has dropped almost $120,000 since 2018, according to the latest report. But people are still leaving. Why? Because homeowners become naturally reluctant to sell. And people are sitting on properties hoping they get the heydays that they had with the massive Chinese influx of money flowing into Australian shores. Housing affordability problem jeopardizing Sydney's global future. Now, this article here is from, I think it's from a few months back. So Sydney is considering affluent. It's considered affluent, but disproportionate chunk of locals' wages go to rent and mortgage. So everybody is house broke. If you're in a major city in Australia and you're an average wage earner, you are house broke. And if you are a doctor, you're completely broke. Why? Unless you're doing private plastic surgery or private work and you're not working for the public sector, then you're doing all right as a doctor in Australia. But if not, you're just trying to make ends meet with student loans and medical school and all that stuff to pay back. In a trend of threatening to drive workers away and hurt the city's future as global economic leader. So people that actually invested in the infrastructure to build your roads, to build all that stuff. What do you mean, Mike? A lot of people go work in offices. No, they get paid. Those private sector jobs are actually what's funding the public sector workers to build your streets and your housing, not your housing, your streets and your mail carriers, your police, your firefighters, everything. And all the people sitting on HR that are learning English, that are sitting on HR levels all over the public sector, that are basically taking the job as HR because so they could get a crash course in the English language. So, and someone with low income would be able to afford a fewer than 1 in 4 properties up for rent in Sydney. So people with average wage can even get into the average wage rental areas because, not average wage, just rentals. So 1 in 4 can't even get with average wage, and that's dangerous. And that's very dangerous territory. Now, let's get into competing for wealthy investors. Now, Australia isn't the only country Australia isn't the only country that's on the hook for this. So Canada admits that they're competing for Chinese and wealthy investors. Canada wants more Chinese workers, students, and tourists, says immigrant minister. Australia won't come out and tell you that they're competing. Canada is increasing licenses or, visa offices with Canadian taxpayers' money to bring in 500,000 Chinese per year. But opening more visa offices could help Canada compete for Chinese workers, students, and lucrative business. So that's what Canada's on the hook for. But not only Canada, Australia is too, so is New Zealand, and the United Kingdom and Western United States of America is on the hook for this, guys. So I want to throw this up there, but then what does this lead to? Canada would be in a recession without money laundering, and the same thing with Australia. Australia would be in a recession right now if it wasn't for money laundering. Let's go back here to my channel. Let's type in Australia money laundering, because I did cover this many times on the channel. Money laundering Australia. Here it is. Money laundering, Australian money laundering fiasco from 10 months ago. Housing crisis, Australia money laundering 3 years ago. Westpac faces fine over money laundering breaches. Let's find ones that are over a couple of years old. Money laundering by foreign buyers destroying housing affordability in Australia. Australian money laundering fiasco part 2. Then I even did a video, will Australia exist in 30 years? I made that video because the people of Australia are losing the battle to washed money. So Canada has $200.5 billion from 2011 to 2015 per province here in laundered money. So Australia needs to come up with a report there by province, seeing how much was laundered, if they're allowed to even extract those numbers, right? So here it is. HSBC reports potential money laundering breaches in Australia. So this is from a week ago. I want to throw this up there because now the banks are starting to falter by the seams because they know they're having a tough issue laundering money. And then you're probably saying, Mike, what the heck are you talking about? Let them crack down on this money laundering. Well, here it is. Australia's Westpac expects $578 million fine for money laundering linked to child abuse. Oh my God. So it's linking to all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to talk about that on the video here. But here's the deal. Here it is. World economy would collapse if City of London stopped laundering money, says HSBC whistleblower. So there it is, guys. They need to keep this Ponzi money. They need money to get offshore. And a lot of people are saying, oh, Mike, the people launder money from all countries into Canada. Nobody's investing in Canada. Nobody is fighting to get their money out of Europe to throw into Canada. Believe me, nobody in Russia is fighting. Nobody in country, even countries like Iraq. Iraq is seeing a lot of people, Iraqi Canadians, moving back to Iraq and moving back to set up a life. You know what I'm saying? So don't say that, oh, a lot of countries. No, it's the Chinese. The Japanese aren't doing it. The Russians, the Portuguese aren't doing it. The Brazilians aren't doing it. They're all saying, but when you're bringing in 500,000 in Canada, that's Canada's number. So there it is. Let's move on. So huge Australian household debt threatens to worsen recession. So with people lining up outside of all these places, these Centrelink or whatever it's called, to get their benefits or something, or unemployment because of this sickness. But guys, this has been coming for the longest time. We've been forecasting this economic crash for a long time. I did not forecast a pandemic or a plandemic or whatever you want to call it, but it is. Buddy who works 2 jobs, working her life, and basically scared to go to work, and ranks of unemployment are swelling in Australia. Government last week pledged 130 billion Australian dollars, that's 80 billion US, in a rescue plan that will subsidize workers, pay out 70%. So there it is, guys. That's what they're let's keep going here, guys. We do not have to worry about paying off Australia's COVID debt for generations. So we're talking about a lot of defaults, and we're talking about a lot of shutdowns where Australians will be paying, especially in the private sector, losses, will be paying through taxes for many years to come. What Australia's skyrocketing government debt means for workers. The Australian government has already racked up a hefty debt battling, again, COVID, economic fallouts, and more is expected to come. This week's government unveiled $130 billion. So let's go back one step. Why didn't they close flights in from China? Well, they can't close in flights from China into Australia. And neither did Canada. Why? Because Australia and Canada are autonomous regions of China. They own all our office buildings. They own so much of our infrastructure. We just can't close flights off from a country that owns us. You know what I'm saying? So this government program unveiled $130 billion JobKeeper payment program that will provide eligible employers with wage subsidy of $1,500 a fortnight for workers to keep their employed during the crisis. So they're getting some sort of support there, but at what cost? Australian housing market takes a huge hit with auctions set to plummet further this weekend. So auctions, no one's going out and auctioning anymore on these properties. Yeah, for people watching this in Louisiana or in Florida or in North Carolina, or, you know, in rural parts of the States all over, take a step back and breathe, because you're not going to believe this. People will step outside of this house here. Let me zoom this in. That house there, that house right now, you could buy that house in Georgia for 90 grand, close to jobs, 20 minutes from Atlanta, okay? That house right there. But guess how much that house is going for in Australia? $2 million. And I'm not over-exaggerating. That's what it's going for. So that's the problem here with the benchmark of housing out of hand. Australians are really in a price crunch right now, when economic financial struggle right now. House prices will not fall sharply. So this is what the Financial Review is saying. Everyone loves contrarian position, and I enjoy betting against conventional wisdom. It's hard to find more empathetic universal. I'm not even going to read this guy. So basically what they're trying to do is twist words to saying that I could battle anybody when it comes to the housing crash and crisis. If the government could, here's the deal, Australia. Pay attention, Australia. If the government could sustain bringing in more wealthy and more money off Chinese shores to buy up your country, yes, the housing market will not crash. But if there's this thing going around and people are scared to get out and this and that, then maybe you might start to see a huge price correction, which I'm hoping for many years. Chilling prospect for proud Sydney and Melbourne homeowners, how house prices could fall 50% as COVID brings on depression, and why Perth will emerge stronger. Perth will emerge stronger. We've been following how the Perth crash after the mining bust back in, was it 2014? The mining bust down in Perth, where Perth went boom. So here it is. U.S. economist Harry Dent predicts 50% crash in Australian house prices. He saw Sydney and Melbourne real estate bottoming out in 2023 and hit 2006 values. Australian economy tipped to enter its first depression in since the 1930s. I've been saying it for many years here, guys, that I have been saying that Australia's housing market's been in a bull run since 1974-75. It's got dips, but if you pay attention to the retraction and then the gains right after, it almost like it never happened, like a little hiccup, and then the repairs happen almost literally overnight, with either government stimulus, lowering rates, or doing whatever they have to keep this craziness on track. So here it is. Biggest threat to Australia from COVID. Here it is. On the agenda, RBA assesses whether QE needs tweaking, of course. A disaster, hour-long queues at Centrelink after PM announces dole raise, and government fires 130 billion on third rescue package. Here's what it means for you. So there it is, guys. I want to throw that in. Keep going. Let's keep going. I got numbers for you guys. The bottom is about to fall out of the Aussie property market. Here's why. Again, they keep throwing up a lot of the sickness, but out of 23 countries in the group, we have let the economic tether between incomes and property prices become stretched. And I bring this up on every trends in the housing market. Average wage earners are not getting into average wage homes. When average wage earners can get into average wage homes, average wage earners that actually support the infrastructure by taxation are moving to other areas and making those places prosper. Australian housing market will hit the wall in COVID recession, experts say. Again, the Reserve Bank, the bank's dramatic $90 billion boost for financial system will not be enough to save the housing market from a possible crash as Australia's heads into COVID-driven recession. And here it is, Australian gambling money laundering whistleblower sued by trade group. So I've already been threatened by being sued by a lot of Australian companies if I continue talking about the money laundering in Australia. Okay, guys, so let's get to it, guys. I've put together some serious numbers for you guys. Okay, now pay close attention. There's no distractions. It's just me here, okay? Let me move this over here so I can actually read my numbers here. I took a lot of notes and a lot of research over the last couple of years, and I started compiling things to give you guys proper numbers. Now, going off unemployment, which is kind of tricky with what's happening right now. Disposable income per household, average total debt service ratio, and how much each family needs to balance to pay their bills and buy food, and their CGS, TDS, and CGS, and then looking at what the governments are easing and how much fulfillment is coming into the locals for government bonuses, contracting of the economy from the last quarter and going forward, looking at the contraction of the economy and the private sector work, and then average wage earners and looking at them and their situation, right? Okay, so I am not going to provide any info on investor homes that are left empty because that is very tough to kind of gauge into this because we're talking about the Australian proper. So, and we're talking about, when I say Australian proper, we're talking about people that have come from all over the world to build Australia and make it what it is up until like the year maybe 1997, 98. People that actually came, and people that came after too, that actually wanted to prosper and build a home and call Australia their home. But a majority of that happened up until the late 90s, and then it kind of started becoming more of a place to dump wealth, if so to say. Okay, did you know that, and then I've been looking into other things, that housing accounts for a major part of the Australian GDP. Of course, it's Australia's underlying economy, underlies their GDP is housing, of course. Housing is so big in Australia that it's bigger than Poland, Germany, and Belgium's economy put together. Right, you could add Spain, Portugal, and Ireland in there if you want to, and it's still Australia's housing market. It's still bigger than all those countries' economies. Now, here's one little tidbit of information. Buddy doesn't want to come on the show, and Buddy does not want to be revealed anything about him. So I said, Bud, it's okay. I'm not gonna. So Buddy's been doing a lot of research, underlying research, and I'm not gonna say in what rank and where because he could get in trouble, because no one's got a lot of this information here. So listen to this. 21% of foreign investors that have a vested interest in Australian housing, okay, that own homes, have never been to Australia. 21% of foreign investors that have a vested interest in Australian housing market have never been to Australia. Wow. I thought Canada's like 19% was higher, but this tops it at 21% have never been to Australia. Now, Australia's housing market is the biggest bubble in the Commonwealth. It's actually even bigger than America's housing bubble. I've been looking at America. Okay, like it's really tough to differentiate America. I wouldn't say bigger than America's housing bubble because, well, I could say that, and I'm going to say that, because you can still go to a lot of states and you can still buy a house for under 130,000 close to jobs. So an average wage earner could still get by in America depending where he lives. But if you want to factor in Washington State, if you want to cut out Washington State, that's a foreign investor haven after Vancouver, BC put on the foreign buyer's tax. If you want to cut out Washington State and you want to cut out Portland, Oregon, and California, you cut those states out. Australia does have a bigger housing bubble than the rest of America does, even including New York and Florida and other states. Yes, Florida's cheap still, but still, to be honest with you. So Australia's housing market is the biggest in the Commonwealth, guys, by far. Per capita, per every angle you want to see, per GDP, per household income, it's the biggest, okay? Now, so here it is. We got some numbers. I put some numbers together. Let me know if I'm wrong with this. I'm looking forward to reading your comments below. I really hope you guys could share my videos. I've been doing this for so many years, and I've gotten a lot of slack for it. So maybe share this video if you could say, like, you know what, this guy's been doing this for years for us, and he's really out there for us because he cares about the keeping these countries what they are so that they could... So one day when I do visit Australia, I could visit and see what Australia is about, right? I don't want to visit Australia and then it's just Sydney and it's just like Vancouver, which it already is. And Melbourne has already become like Vancouver and Toronto. So these cities are all becoming very similar to each other. So here it is, guys. Sydney Condo. So Sydney Condo correction needs a 51% retraction. Wow. Housing, 62.91 retraction in Sydney housing. Okay? That's a 62.19 in the more denser, more expensive areas. When you go outside of Sydney, like West Sydney and other parts there, you're looking at a 48.77% in the outskirts of the downtown area of Sydney. Condo retraction outside of Sydney, maybe a 15-mile to 20-mile drive, you're looking at a condo retraction of, believe it or not, 54%. Because people at the beginning were jumping to those areas and commuting to work, right? So Melbourne condos need to see a 39% retraction. Homes, 31.29%. Brisbane condos need to see a 19.42% retraction. Homes need to see a 34.19% retraction. Perth housing, 8.71% retraction. And condos, 11.22% retraction. Adelaide condos, 19.22% retraction. Housing, 14.66% retraction. Gold Coast condos, 21% retraction. Wow, I was shocked. I'm like, why? It's not that expensive. Actually, it is overpriced now with average wage earners and what's happening right now. Housing needs to see a 14.66% retraction. Sorry. Gold Coast condos, 21% retraction. Housing, 27.61% retraction in Gold Coast. Newcastle condos, 9.7% retraction. Homes, 6.2% retraction, which is kind of weird, but Canberra, condo, 18.41% retraction, and homes, 31.11% retraction in Canberra. Canberra was on fire, eh? After everyone was leaving Sydney, then Melbourne, and then Canberra, and the people that left the mainland went to Hobart. Hobart condos are 22%. They will see a 22% retraction, and homes will see a 32% retraction. So it's condos 22 and homes 32% retraction. So I took my time, guys, to really put this out there for you guys. I really care about what's happening in all these other countries because we've been seeing the same phenomena time and time again. And here it is, guys. Let me just open that up real quick. Guys, don't forget to set your reminders here on my shows here. Trends in the housing market is Wednesday nights. So that'll be Thursday afternoon in Sydney time. So trends in the housing market, come on the channel, set your reminders, call into the show, tell us what's happening because everything trends to housing, whether jobs, economy, gold, silver, oil, minerals, commodity market, what it doesn't matter. A futures market, it all trails back. Negative interest rates, banking scams, banking schemes, all this stuff trails back to housing in the end. It all heads home in the end, right? So guys, don't forget to check out all this that I've done for Australia over the past years and years and years. Let's take a gander at this. YouTubers! Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel. I got a really 3 years ago or 4 years ago in 2013, I think it was, about how the RCMP knows that there's a lot of gangs involved overseas in buying property. Well, the gangs are from China, by the way. Australia is the worst. Selling fentanyl and all that fentanyl and opioids or whatever, and then taking the profits and reinvesting in our real estate. Falling to address 10 out of 10 loopholes. Wow. So Australia was not taking care of their money laundering standards because there's too many loopholes, and a lot of it is going into identification of beneficial owners of legal entities, trusts, and other legal arrangements is still not the norm. Foreign companies and all this. Look, foreign companies have access to real estate market with few requirements or checks. Try going to Mexico and buying a property like that without any checks. You can't buy a house in Mexico unless you're Mexican. Oh, Mike, what are you talking about? My uncle owns a place there now. He's been there 9 years. He's leasing the land and he owns the house. And when the lease is up in Mexico, they take your house and land. Okay? So Thailand, China, there's a lot of countries, parts of, I think, I'm just trying to think what other countries are like that, but there's quite a few countries. Guys, check this out, guys. Casino, rolling dice. People have been trying to sue me for this. Good morning, good night, wherever you may be watching this transmission. Australia have been impacted. Look at money laundering. Canada would be in a recession without criminals, money laundering. Canada's GDP needs money laundering. Australian money laundering fiasco. Look at that. So that's it. Like, that's a whistleblower laundering money through an Australian casino here. Wow, bricks of money. Just me in a hockey bag and throw me down the river. So what is happening? In a private room in Melbourne's Crown Casino, a man wearing a tracksuit, pants, and runners approaches the counter with a rectangular blue cooler bag. CCTV footage shows. There you go, guys. Subscribe, share the videos, guys. Get me out there. I've been working hard on this, guys, for so many years. I appreciate the support, guys. So share a video, let me know, and we will talk soon. And thanks so much, guys, down under. Lots of love, okay?